Dear Mr. Gennady Golovkin, I would like to extend my greetings to amateur boxing judges and, no less importantly, to coaches working in boxing gyms. With this work, I originally planned to speak at the World Boxing Convention, but together with Boris van der Vorst it was decided to postpone this report and move it to the organization's next sports committee meeting. After that, I decided that recording this material on video would be a more appropriate approach. When a presentation is delivered only once, in a lecture format, key points may go unheard. The material itself is quite complex. A video format makes it possible to work with the content more easily, revisit it, take screenshots, and analyze it calmly. Let us begin. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Yury Koptsev. I am your colleague within the boxing profession, a boxing judge with 20 years of experience, but exclusively in professional boxing, including officiating title fights for world championship belts. As for the question of how I dare to instruct colleagues from a parallel professional field, I will try to answer that briefly now. My sporting background, including many years of refereeing experience, as well as my primary professional activity today, auditing e-commerce and conducting mathematical analysis, that is, working with numbers, have led me to the conclusions that I would like to share with you. Today, we will be talking about boxing mathematics. I will open for you your own Pandora's box of numbers and will try to explain why, in boxing, 2 times 2 does not equal 4, as it does for everyone else, but 5. Since this presentation addresses a narrow professional topic, the material may seem complex, but I will support the flow of my reasoning with visual graphics, and I will try to make the conclusions clear and simple for everyone. So, let us begin. We all know the problems of Olympic boxing. One of the main, fundamental problems today is the problem of judging. Our eternal headache in judging, as we know, is that everyone considers themselves an expert, and everyone talks about it: fans, journalists, coaches, bloggers, housewives. Everyone weighs in, but no one truly understands anything. A situation familiar to all of us. What is interesting is that the boxers themselves are often unable to clearly explain what is happening to them in the ring. Therefore, today we will be talking precisely about this, about the lack of clarity in amateur boxing, or more specifically, about the methodology for determining the winner through numbers. Please be patient. This is dull, tedious, complex, but extremely necessary and critically important material for you. To begin with, I would like to ask the audience, did everyone study arithmetic in primary school? From the school curriculum, we were supposed to learn simple things. That 9 is greater than 6. Do you remember that? The principle of greater and lesser. I hope everyone understands this. This conditional calibration will be needed later. We will return to this value again. The boxing community welcomed the return of boxing to the Olympic family with enthusiasm. We all know that in recent years, amateur boxing has been shaken by scandals, including those caused by controversial judging decisions. Boxing was on the verge of being excluded from the Olympic program, understanding that the button-based algorithm, the so-called punch count, had compromised itself. Officials attempted to restore order. Thus, in 2013, the buttons were removed. The professional boxing scoring system was rapidly introduced, using a 5-judge model. However, in doing so, they forgot the most important thing: to verify the mathematical model itself and the risks inherent in it. Here it is important to note that abandoning the button-based system was the correct and well-justified decision. The system was formally objective. With primitive punch counting, we lost the meaning of boxing strategy. Important elements were not considered: power, initiative, defense, and much more. Sports officials, as we know, are very creative and proactive people. They know better than anyone how to engage the audience. They write regulations, remove and put on headgear, then vests. They change gloves, the number of rounds, the number of minutes. Recently, they changed weight categories. I do not know what this was justified by. In my view, they are engaged in everything except what they should actually be focusing on. To this day, no one has wanted to delve into the DNA of the mathematical formula on the basis of which the winner of a bout is determined. If done properly, then at the very beginning, before implementing the system, it should have been tested. Together with colleagues in our professional field, we discuss the topic of numbers in boxing. I speak about this with world-class figures, world champions, coaches, judges. Yet in these discussions I receive vague, unclear answers. We have heard something, we understand something. But I assure you that no one has a complete picture. I fully understand why the sporting community reacts the way it does to the word mathematics. We all studied it at school. but we must admit that no one really liked it. Mathematics has always been associated with something difficult. Today, even the World Health Organization recognizes such a term as mathematical anxiety. Our boxing colleagues avoid conversations about numbers. And I understand why. The thing is that mathematics has a fairly high threshold of entry, and people in discussions do not want to appear, to put it mildly, incompetent. Very few people, without a calculator, can mentally divide 10 by 0.5 and give the correct answer. Without certain basic knowledge, as we know, mathematics is inaccessible. When I talk about numbers, many people assume that this is merely my subjective opinion, that I have calculated something and am probably mistaken. They discuss fight results with me and immediately begin to argue that I did not see the bout live, while my opponents were at the arena, saw everything, and understand it all. Let me reveal a secret to you. In order to understand the numerical results of a bout, it is not actually necessary to see the fight itself. Because mathematics is a system, and everything is clearly visible on paper. One only needs to carefully examine the official protocol and think. Today, boxing operates according to an algorithm in which, by default, a distortion of the match result is embedded. We see this in the protocols. For several years now, I have been publishing articles on this topic which, must be said, have found understanding among parts of the boxing community. At the same time, boxing organizations, with their constantly changing names and responsibility for amateur boxing, as it seems, have little desire to delve into the essence of this problem. Yet this issue lies directly within their area of responsibility and competence. Overall, there is probably nothing surprising about this. Often, our administrators are people who are not very familiar with boxing theory, and they act according to the principle of taxi drivers: don't touch anything as long as it doesn't fall apart. After all, boxing somehow existed before this, the professionals do it this way. A very convenient position. Remark: sports theory is the foundation upon which absolutely everything in sport is built today. Yet not a single footballer, nor a single football fan, in debates, has ever answered my question: what is a truncated icosahedron? Let us return. Judging in boxing is a difficult profession. Today, judges review thousands of rounds each year, working intensively to maintain and improve their qualifications. All this work is necessary in order to master the main task, determining the winner of a round, the key intermediate segment of a bout. This is exactly what all judges are taught at refereeing seminars, to evaluate not the fight as a whole, but each round separately. All coaches, boxers, and fans will unanimously confirm that the main criterion in boxing is the round, winning or losing it. For boxers, a round is an objective unit of measurement. It is just as objective as a kilogram, a liter, or a degree. Today, the result of an amateur boxing bout is considered to be the sum of the numbers awarded by 5 judges, followed by a comparison of the final tallies between them: 5-0, 4-1, 3-2. However, there is an interesting detail that often deprives boxers of victory, nullifies the efforts of judges, and misleads fans. The judging system that exists today, in its familiar format, often does not reflect the reality of what is happening in the ring. And the reason for this lies in the mathematical algorithm used to calculate the final result. I will build my explanation using 2 simple examples. The outcomes of these bouts will demonstrate only a small part of the absurdity. Then I will explain how this system works, why this happens, and how this problem can be resolved. I will give you an interesting example of a bout result which today is not unique and is often encountered in the ring in various combinations. Boxer A, the red corner boxer, wins the first round 4-1. During the break, the blue corner team revises its tactical approach, and already in the second round, Boxer B, the blue corner boxer, wins the round 1-4. After 2 rounds, we see that neither boxer has an advantage. We are faced with an equal numerical position, in which the boxers find themselves before the final, decisive segment of the bout, the third round. It is obvious to all of us that with 2 mutually exclusive rounds, the bout should be won by the boxer who wins the decisive segment of the fight, the final round. So, Boxer A, the red corner boxer, wins the third round 3-2. Who, in your opinion, should win this bout? Logically, after 2 mirrored rounds, 4-1, 1-4, the bout should be won by the boxer who takes the third round. But no, boxing and logic today are not synonymous and are far removed from each other. To general surprise, the bout is won by the blue corner boxer, Boxer B, the boxer who loses the third round. One might ask, what about the judges? And the judges have nothing to do with it. They honestly and professionally perform their job, determining the winner of each round. So how did such a result occur? And how is this even possible? Before you are the real official protocol of the semi-final bout of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games between the Cuban boxer Lazaro Alvarez and the Russian boxer Albert Batagaziev. For those who understand boxing, it is obvious that the Cuban boxer should have won, but the victory ricochets to the Russian. That is, the red corner boxer wins, yet the blue corner boxer is declared the winner. The majority of judges' votes, 8-7, go to red, but for some reason the victory slips to the other side and the blue corner wins the fight 2-3. The question arises, why? Sleight of hand, and no fraud. The boxer who receives the majority of judges' votes, that is, who actually wins, packs his suitcase and flies home, while the boxer who receives fewer votes, that is, who loses, advances to the final. David Copperfield would envy us here. Frankly speaking, this is a poor scheme, and corruption has nothing to do with it. Judges will now tell me that's not how we count. We calculate by adding down the table. It is a tradition, but it was taken from professional boxing, and this sport, one must understand, has its own complexities. Studying the linear results of professional bouts, I have encountered models where a boxer wins a fight by rounds, 7-5, yet loses the bout by a unanimous judge's decision, 113-115. I am showing you a model of such a protocol with graphics. There are many questions even in professional boxing. Take a screenshot, study it, but this is a completely different sport and a different discussion. Today, however, we are talking about amateur boxing and analyzing examples that are clear and familiar to us. Amateurs adopted a non-ideal system from professionals and failed to properly analyze the numbers. Before implementation, at the very beginning, it was necessary to calculate the risks of this model over the short distance of 3 rounds. Amateur boxing, as part of the Olympic movement, has always stood on Olympic principles, where the strongest must win, not by chance, not by luck, but precisely the strongest. A champion, as we know, must be a champion. First place must belong to the first, not the second, not the fifth who happen to get there by chance. We are talking about the Olympic postulate, faster, higher, stronger. Sicius, Altius, Fortius. We know that the pinnacle of an athlete's career in amateur boxing is the Olympic Games final and an Olympic gold medal. But when looking at the Tokyo Protocol, a boxing version of the motto comes to mind, in which the word stronger should be replaced with the word lucky. Faster, higher, lucky. A new boxing Olympic motto. Stronger, judging by the strange algorithm, today is no longer about boxers. Faster, higher. Well done. Faster, higher. That's how it turned out. Also not bad options. You can substitute other relevant values, but honestly speaking, there is very little that is funny about this. Dear boxing friends, everything in our lives is mathematics, I assure you. Many modern things today are built on mathematical logic. One can give countless examples. Mathematics is integrated everywhere. We do not see it, but it is there. Boxing, I hasten to assure you, is also mathematics. And today this sport, more than ever, requires correction in the accuracy of determining the winner. In our youth, all of us read the wonderful children's book Alice in Wonderland. Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice, in addition to being a children's writer, was by profession first and foremost a logician and mathematician, a professor at Oxford University. He worked in algebra, logic, and mathematical analysis. It is precisely to Carroll that modern sport, and boxing in particular, owes the introduction of the principle of separating the strongest competitors of a tournament into the upper and lower halves of the draw. This algorithm was proposed and implemented by the author of Alice in 1885 at the Wimbledon tennis tournament. 140 years ago. Sport is mathematics. Example number 2, no less interesting than the first. First, I will conceal the overall picture to create some intrigue, and then we will laugh and cry together. So, let us begin. In the first round, the red corner boxer, Boxer A, wins 3-2. In the second round, Boxer A, the red corner boxer, wins 3-2. And in the third round, the red corner boxer, Boxer A, also wins 3-2. Let us engage our sober, professional minds. The intrigue is weak, but I will still ask you, who do you think won this bout? If this were not the subject of our discussion today, you would not even hesitate. All of our colleagues in sport, without exception, would answer that the boxer who won all 3 rounds won the bout. The red corner boxer. There can be no other option. Go into a boxing gym, talk to the coaches. Ask them this question, look at their reaction. But no, it is possible. In this bout, by magic and miracle of boxing mathematics, the winner is the boxer. Drum roll. The blue corner boxer, boxer B. How? You will ask me. Silently. You don't understand? I also refuse to understand this while sober. I did not invent this model myself. I am showing you on screen the result of bout number 198 of the World Championship in Liverpool, between a Ukrainian boxer and a boxer from Kosovo. I do not have the official protocol. I have a screenshot of the bout result from the championship website. I am displaying it on the screen. The red corner boxer receives 9 judges' votes against 6, wins all 3 rounds, yet loses the fight. I consider this brilliant. We will hardly find a more foolish example than this. The vertical count, with comparison of the judges' final decisions, gives us yet another absurd result. The logic of this example tells us that the red corner boxer was better in the first, second, and third rounds, better by 1 judge's vote in each round, winning all 3 rounds with a score of 3-2 each, and in total collecting 9 judges' votes out of 15. A life hack for boxers. In order to win a bout, it turns out, it is not necessary to strain yourself too much. You can lose all 3 rounds and still take the victory. How do you like that, Elon Musk? Let me remind you that at the beginning of this presentation we calibrated values according to the greater-lesser principle, 6-9, 9-6. It would be inappropriate to cite examples from school mathematics and physics textbooks. For us, as adults, it should be obvious that with equal units of mass, 9 kilograms is always heavier than 6. There can be no other way. If in boxing 6 kilograms turns out to be heavier than 9, then an error must be found. I have always loved physics because its laws cannot be violated, not even for money, but somehow, in boxing, this seems to be happening. I do not understand how. It should be noted that the Kosovar boxer, the winner of this bout, in the following fight, in the first round, at the 30th second, ended his participation in the World Championship. He lost by a heavy knockout to the Kazakh boxer Saburkan. This tells us that incorrect mathematics, which advances random boxers to the next round, puts the safety of these boxers at risk. I have given you only 2 flawed examples, but there are a huge number of them. And it is very important that today's examples are not the results of student regional competitions. These are, think about it, protocols of the Olympic Games and the World Championships. These are protocols of the history of boxing written by you. And at this level, as we understand, for boxers these are fate-defining decisions. Athletes' dreams of forever inscribing themselves in the history of sport are shattered against a broken calculator. We are not talking now about anyone disputing results. The law has no retroactive force. But these illustrative examples demonstrate the absurdity of what is happening and force us to think. It is interesting that the sponsors of all these competitions are very often large corporations, national lotteries, betting companies, technological giants, Omega, Visa, Intel, Panasonic. These companies bring into the world their corporate values of precision, speed, and reliability. It would be interesting to hear what they would say once they understand boxing mathematics. So now, about the algorithm itself. In order to clarify the full picture, we need to understand what boxing is in numerical terms. It is not enough for us to take paper protocols from 520 fights of the World Championship in Liverpool and analyze them. There are far more possible outcomes, and in order to calculate all of this, we need to turn to mathematics. In mathematics, there is a principle and a method that make it possible to determine the number of possible values and to analyze them. In boxing, there is a clearly defined number of possible outcomes. Like a suitcase with a combination lock. As we know, such a lock has 1,000 possible combinations. Not 999, but exactly 1,000. I remind you that this includes the combination 000. So, let us proceed. We take the initial values of 10 vertical and 3 horizontal lines. On the sheet, we see a code with a combination of 30 digits in a unique order, 10s and 9s scattered across the sheet, with 5 judges, over 3 rounds. After mathematical calculations, we determine that the supervisor's sheet, in various combinations, consists of 32,768 possible outcome variants. This is precisely the exact number of unique possible protocols in amateur boxing. There is nothing more precise than that, and the error lies precisely in this sheet. It is exactly from here that the wonders of mathematical acrobatics begin. Let us take a brief detour. Out of curiosity, let us calculate one interesting thing. What are the World Championship results within the total mass of all possible outcomes? What shares do 520 championship bouts represent out of a pool of 32,000? Can we draw conclusions by looking at the protocols of a single competition? To do this, we divide 520 by 32,000. We obtain 0.015, and we multiply this by 100. We get a value of 1.59. The World Championship represents only 1.6% of all existing boxing outcomes. For analysis and conclusions, as you understand, this is negligibly small. These numbers are simply not enough for us. Let us make one more interesting calculation. How much time, within the calendar of major tournaments, would we need in order to obtain practically all 32,000 protocols on paper? There are, of course, people who do not trust calculators. Having the total number, we divide it by 520 and obtain 63. This is the number of tournaments over which we would need to collect all paper protocols for all 32,000 outcomes. Let me help you calculate it. 63 tournaments in the boxing calendar means 40 World Championships and 23 Olympic Games. To collect and analyze this volume of paperwork, assuming the uniqueness of each bout, would take approximately 80 years. I remind you that 22 Olympic Games have taken place since the Berlin Olympics of 1936. But I propose that we take a different path, a more modern one, and save our time. Mathematics will help us shorten the distance. Today, having the numerical outcomes, we must solve the main task, to understand the data, identify errors, and determine an algorithm for correcting them. Let us not complicate things. We will take the simple path. To simplify working with numbers and to make understanding easier, in the table we need to replace the values of the 10s with 1s and set the value of the 9s equal to 0. Nothing depends on the digit 9, we simply remove it. In this mathematics, 9s play no role. From this operation, we see that we are left with a simple value for the total of the table, it equals 15. A boxer, within the formula of a 3-round bout with 5 judges, is in fact competing in the table for 15 scores. You can substitute anything into these values, 10s, wavy parrots, or even count everything in Newtons or in Muhammad Ali's. But the number of values will still be 15. 15 10s, 15 parrots, 15 units. The range of amateur boxing runs from a 15-0 victory for the red corner to a 0-15 clean victory for the blue corner. We now dive into the most boring, but also the most important part, the numbers. Let us verify, using a simple control set of units, 15 points, the results produced by the currently applied 5-judge scoring balance. If you look at the boxing range and move from left to right, from the red corner to the blue corner, the values will change, initially decreasing. 15-0, 14-1. 13-2, 12-3, and at the junction of 8-7, 7-8, they pass through the midpoint and begin to rise, 7-8, 6-9, 5-10, 0-15. What do the numbers in this table give us? By conducting an analysis and moving step by step from the extreme value of the red corner, 0-15, we arrive at the value 10-5. In this range, the 5-judge scoring balances used today coincide with the control count of units. In this stable range, there are no questions about the numbers. Everything is reasoned and clear. But it must be understood that this range of scores has never been controversial or scandalous. These are obviously one-sided fights in terms of evaluation. 5-0, 4-1. There are 9,888 such outcomes in boxing. However, when the score steps over the line from 10 to 5 to 9 to 6, we enter the swamp and darkness of four close values, 9 to 6, 8 to 7, 7 to 8, 6 to 9. From these arise the familiar and much discussed controversial results 3 to 2, 2 to 3. In the range of close numerical values of competitive bouts, it is precisely within these four outcomes that arguments begin, team dissatisfaction arises, and fans' faces show bewilderment. Because this is where mathematics begins to display breakdowns in numbers and false results. In these four outcomes, discrepancies begin to appear between the results produced by the system currently used in boxing and the control set based on simple summation. These discrepancies are the main marker indicating the presence of an internal error. As soon as we see mathematics starting to fall apart, we are faced with a false protocol. A boxer wins 9 to 6, but loses 2 to 3, and goes home. Immediately recall the second Liverpool example, where a boxer wins all 3 rounds, gains a majority of judges' votes at 9 to 6, yet loses the bout by some mysterious judging decision. The total number of close bouts in the supervisor's sheets is 22,880. And we calculated that within this range, mathematics produces 5,880 outcomes with an erroneous and contradictory result. Verification of the numbers tells us that in these four close result values, 25% of the protocols, that is, every fourth result, is incorrect and should be thrown into the trash. The applied system breaks the outcomes of the most interesting bouts, competitive fights. Once again, I would like to emphasize this point. The error today lies in the situation where the accepted 5-judge scoring balance, 15 to 0, 0 to 15, diverges from the control balance of a simple sum of units, the sum of a single column, 15 to 0, 0 to 15. We encounter this situation only in 4 close bout values. In both cases, the judges are the very same judges, yet within a single table, we often see contradictory values, and mathematics exists precisely in order to verify itself. The principle of stability must operate within the system. Engineers cannot build a bridge over which you might cross, or might not. That is not how bridges are built. All numbers and values in foundational structures must be reliable. Today, when a boxer enters the ring, he does not understand what result will be assigned to his labor and effort. He is not confident that, having won the bout, he will receive his deserved victory. Today, in boxing, no one can truly understand anything. Who won, and most importantly, why? It is unclear how a boxer can prepare himself and count on victory if the result is in no way connected to the level of his skill, preparation, and dedication in the bout. Today, boxing needs a fair, well-founded, simple, and transparent system. In the documents for the new organization, World Boxing, I read about the attempts to implement AI. And I address this to World Boxing officials: leave this technology for table tennis. Right now, everyone is waiting for a miracle from AI. This technology is experiencing the peak of hype. Everyone believes that GPT will solve all pressing problems. But in my memory, this is not the first technology that ran into a fence. Before that, everyone was waiting for a miracle from blockchain. Do you remember? Everyone said that the legal profession would disappear. But it turned out that technology has its own limitations. The same applies to AI. Everyone thinks that a miracle is just about to happen. But today, as we know, all the texts on the planet were uploaded into GPT, and it turned out that it produces nonsense, and there is nowhere else to get intelligence from. Technologists have always spoken cautiously about GPT. It is the humanities crowd that is enchanted by all this, without understanding the limitations of this technology. My opinion is that AI will not be able to judge boxing independently. And even if you want to experiment, applying AI on top of a flawed algorithm is wrong in any case. We return to the subject. The comparison of judges' decisions currently applied today produces an absolutely absurd result. The existing method does not consider the main foundation of sport, the interests of the athlete. It also devalues the work of the coach. All these examples and the mathematics tell us that corrections must be made. It is important to remember that the core, fundamental element in boxing is the boxer, not a piece of paper with a strange judging outcome. Mathematics shows that the existing system operates falsely, does not correspond to the ideas of the theory of this sport, nor to Olympic principles. Today in boxing, it is not the strongest who wins. Now about how all this can be brought into a proper form. In order to balance the situation, two things are necessary. an understanding of boxing theory and basic mathematical knowledge. Today, we know all the numbers, and all that's needed is to use them properly. It must be said that today it is difficult to propose an alternative, fundamentally new scoring system for boxing. Judging systems, as we know, have a strong influence on boxing, and in our lifetime, we have already seen many systems and many reformers. The only thing we can do today, in our situation, is to preserve the overall structure and simply correct the error. Remark, it is good that in this model we have 5 judges, thus, we have 5 scores per round. The more control points we rely on, the better. In mathematics, this is called the validity of a mathematical series. Validity comes from the Latin word meaning healthy or adequate. The more data we have, the more accurate the result. At this point, we are talking about the fact that 5 judges are better than 3, because each erroneous decision is leveled out by the mass of numbers. If, in the old version with 3 judges, the weight of a single judge's vote in the protocol was equal to 11%, then in the 5-judge model the weight of a judge's opinion is already 6%. This is more reliable. Let us return to the subject. We analyzed many mathematical models. However, mathematics has shown that the only correct algorithm, without numerical conflicts, is to move the judge's decisions in the protocol linearly to the right and to use a simple summation of results into a single column. Not 5 steps downward, as is done today, but linearly to the right and then 1 step downward. In this case, the boxers will end up not with results such as 5 to 0, 2 to 3, 3 to 2, 15 to 0, 0 to 15, 8 to 7, 7 to 8. It all seems simple, but it took time to arrive at this, to identify the error and to justify everything properly. We also tried to find a model for scoring boxing by rounds. However, in the experimental results we observed combinations where mathematics breaks down. That is, the tennis principle of counting sets within a 5-judge model is not applicable to boxing. Mathematics shows that this approach contains errors. The correct solution today would be to determine the result of a boxing bout as a single final outcome, by analogy with the 4x400 athletics relay, where 4 segments are measured by the sum of the total time. In our case, it is the sum of 3 rounds, 3 intermediate segments. Essentially, it is the same relay, only instead of 8 athletes running, there are 2. A similar simple and stable model is used by British judges in the undercards of professional bouts. There, the referee, who is also the sole judge, fills out a single scorecard with 1 column and obtains 1 simple comparative final result. The principle of shifting the numbers to the right and summing the result into a single column will work correctly and reliably. Like a mousetrap. Remark, the patent for the mousetrap belongs to the inventor of the machine gun, Sir Hiram Maxim. Simple things were not invented by foolish people. The way out of this situation is suggested to us by logic. The solution also lies in the realm of mathematics and Roman law, based on the principle of balance, greater, lesser, but in a simpler and more understandable form. The solution to the existing problem is to determine the winner through the balance of final totals in the 15-0, 0-15 model. I will repeat once again, in boxing, it is necessary to shift the numbers in the scorecard linearly to the right after each round, rather than dropping them 5 lines downward as is done today, and then to calculate the sum and obtain a simple comparative result: 15-0, 3-12, 9-6, 11-4. This is the correct solution to this mathematical problem. With the algorithm currently in use, you will continue to get a mess of judges' numbers and often contradictory results. Won, but lost. Lost, but won. It is necessary to move away from comparing 5 judges' decisions. The winner of a bout should be determined by a single, simple set of units. This is a precise and stable algorithm, because the numbers will not pass through formulas and come into conflict with one another. The winner will be the boxer who, in total, has accumulated a simple majority of winning points. It is important that this model does not change the scoring principles which, as we know, directly influence how boxers are trained. For judges and coaches, within their algorithms, everything remains in its place. Only the supervisor's table algorithm changes, in the correct direction, and common sense is restored. Moreover, in the proposed model we have an odd total number, which eliminates the possibility of a draw, 8-7, 7-8. We all understand the importance of this issue. Solving the problem of numbers will rid boxing of disputes, conflicts, and the search for scapegoats. And most importantly, a valid system will secure boxing a place in the new cycle of the Olympic movement. If you keep the old scoring system, then expect that the protocol from the second Liverpool example will one day become the protocol of an Olympic final. And then boxing, together with AI, will crash into a wall at full speed. At that point, the shop can be closed. Faster, higher, well done. Personally, after I worked through the numbers, I lost interest in tournament boxing. Because today's bout results have nothing in common with the real picture of what is happening in the ring. Boxing has long since lost its clarity. And the amateur champion's title, as mathematics clearly shows us, now has a very approximate value. We are here with you in London, in the famous Repton Hall, the very place where Guy Ritchie filmed the card game scene. That is the key scene at the beginning of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. In that hall, confident London lads, who by the way knew how to play poker, wanted to win £100,000, but were cheated out of £500,000. Today, boxing results very often remind me of that sad story. And now let us move toward the conclusion and draw our conclusions. I have tried, in a reasoned manner and using two examples, to explain what traps are hidden in the algorithm that is applied today. Leaving it as it is not an option, but the decision is yours, whether to replace it with the proposed simple model, or to try to complicate matters and develop a different system, is a question for the new organization. But something tells me that, after going around the full circle, you will return to the proposed simple model. Today, before experimenting with AI, you first need to fix the mathematical model. AI will not solve the problem and will not justify a flawed algorithm. It will not correct the error until you correct it yourselves. And so that my opinion is not seen as subjective, I strongly recommend commissioning an independent review from any mathematical institute. As the basis for the technical assignment, you can use the theses of this presentation and have them verified. Putting the numbers of amateur boxing in order today is the core and most important task. I dedicate this work to the Kazakhstan Boxing Federation, and specifically to the team of the Almaty Federation, to my friend Mikhail Yuryevich Yerchenko, a brilliant boxer of his era. I am confident that this work, in the hands of intelligent people who genuinely care about boxing, will find its proper application. There is an opinion that if the scoring system is left as it is, boxing will bury itself. It will not even need any help. And for now, we all continue to worry about boxing's position in the Olympic program. The finals of the boxing tournament on the last day of the Olympics have long been a tradition. Therefore, if we are talking about boxing remaining in the IOC program, then all of us need to sort out the numbers before the upcoming Olympic Games. Thank you all very much for your attention.